I think it's important to sort of step back and look at where we are. We are in a post-Brexit world. We are hopefully in a post-COVID world. And we find it very strange and bizarre that the first statement that the Gibraltar comes up with in the context of tourism should be the repatriation of what we think is a very important leadership role, which we think should be handled in Gibraltar, to London. Instead of coming up with what we would have expected the government to have done, is to come up with a detailed vision and strategy as to what our tourism industry, which is absolutely fundamental for Gibraltar's economy. It has been well known for many, many years that it is one of our main sectors and driving forces of our economy, not to have come up with that vision and with that strategy.
But isn't a considered strategy for the tourist product something that a new CEO would bring with them?
Yes, absolutely. We agree with that. But that CEO, in our view, should be based in Gibraltar. That CEO should be an individual who takes a look at the tourist board, revamps it in two aspects, I would say. On the one hand, from an organizational, administrative point of view, and I think it's almost impossible to do that many, many miles away, whether it's London or anywhere else. But then also from a products perspective, and revamp also what it is that in a post-COVID world, Gibraltar is going to be offering by way of its tourism industry. Because I think it is fair to say that we are now entering a stage where there's a question mark, query. Are we going to continue attracting, the thousands of passengers in, I don't know how many vessels have traditionally come to Gibraltar? Are we going to continue attracting the hundreds of passengers that come on a daily basis, or thousands across the frontier in coach loads? In effect, what you're doing is decapitating the role here. So the organization here will be rudderless, and transferring a part of the mind and management many, many miles away in London.
But in a world where we've increasingly gotten used to working remotely and virtually, and CEOs of major companies all over the world are managing their corporations from desks in a remote part of the world, isn't it possible to have someone in London managing the Gibraltar Tourist Board?
I'm not convinced that rationale is correct. Yes, it is true that many of us are getting used to that way of working and of doing things. But as an individual, personally, I like the personal contact. I like to have a feel of who I'm dealing with. I like to have a look at people's eyes and see the body language. All of that is in very large measure lost if you're doing things remotely. And I think many people, many business people would agree with that proposition. All of that is lost if you limit yourself to the rather distant way of doing things by way of Zoom and Zoom calls. I think, one doesn't compare with the other, with all due respect.